Hey, what is up guys, this is Corb, and taking on Bommal, it's one of the toughest challenges you're going to come up against in Doom Tower, particularly Bommal stage 90 on hard. And so in this video, we're going to be covering all of the cheat codes that you can use solo carry champions to help you progress through Bommal. Bears mentioning right from the get-go that most of these champs are going to be equipped in Immortal and Regeneration sets, and so that's the one time I'm going to mention it in this video, right? All of these guys, Immortal, Regeneration is the ideal. If there are any exceptions to the rule, then I'll go ahead and make sure to mention that as well. And I also invite any more veteran players who are watching this to, if I miss any champs in this video that can solo Bommal, make sure you drop them down below in the comments, man, and help the new players out. And to be honest, help me out as well. Okay, so I know that I said solo carry champions, but we're going to start off with the rares. And Master Butcher is one that we got to mention because even though he relies on a team, he is a cheat code to Bommal purely because of his passive, right? When attacked, heals all allies equal to the amount of damage taken. It says it does not work against bosses. However, the bombs that Bommal spawns, they count as adds, right? They count as enemy entities or enemy champions. And so when those bombs explode, yeah, Master Butcher will actually heal all of that damage back. Now, the bombs will deal 40% of your champion's health as damage back to them, right? So as long as Master Butcher is the champ in your team with the most health, you just want to pack this guy out with as much health as humanly possible. You will always be healing your entire team back again for way more damage than the bombs are dealing. For that reason, he's just a very, very simple build. Slot him into whichever team you want, right? Your dungeoneering team or whatever to take on Bommal. Make sure there's not too many buffs because then Bommal's just going to strip those buffs and bomb the hell out of everybody, and that's going to suck, right? And I'm not certain, but that might actually give you a fail condition. And Master Butcher should have you covered in terms of keeping your team alive for the most part. So that's Master Butcher. Quick little cheat code. We'll throw him in first and foremost before getting onto an extremely painstaking option because we are starting off with the rares. And for that reason, we got to talk for a second about Templar. So Templar is really all about his A2. He attacks in 4 times at random. We don't care about that. Places a block damage buff on this champion for 1 turn. So the idea with Templar is you're swinging in with your A1, right? Chipping the boss down very, very slowly, albeit. And then every time the bombs are about to detonate, you want to be popping this A2. This means that you will need to be fighting this fight manually. It also means it's going to take like 18, 19, 20 minutes. It's going to take a long time. But thankfully, you just have to beat the Bommal once, okay? He's not the kind of boss that you typically see people prioritizing farming. So you're not going to be spam killing Bommal or whatever to farm its drops. You just got to beat him one time, and Templar can be your answer to that if you're in a beginner stage on your account. However, very, very important, man. We kind of mentioned it as well back with Master Butcher, but any buffs that you have on your champs, Bommal has the chance of swinging in, attacking your guys, and actually stripping those buffs and replacing them with bombs, and he can do that to the block damage buff, and this is where speed tuning is going to become very, very important indeed, because there is a brief window in between when Bommal attacks and when his bombs detonate, okay? So for stage 90 hard mode Bommal, you can clear it with Templar. The speed that you got to land on is 239 up to 249. And this will always ensure that in between Bommal attacking and the bombs detonating, Templar will get his turn and you will be able to get off the A2. Now, Templar is not reliable for this job because his A1 has a chance of applying decreased speed, which can screw up the timings completely, right, and land you in a whole world of trouble. Now, you can circumvent this problem by just building him with no accuracy and just really minimizing the chance that this debuff lands, but even then, there is a tiny, tiny chance that it will land, and the run is kind of screwed. But hey, Templar is an option to get this done, again, if you just need to get it done once to advance beyond Bommal. I should mention now as well that obviously all of the different stages and difficulties of Bommal have different speed tuning requirements. I'll probably try and link those down below in the video description, just so you can take a peek down there and see, depending on what stage you're at, what kind of speed you need to be landing in, what kind of speed range. And alright, man, time to move on to the happy epic champions. Moving up a tier, boys. But before we get into that, if you haven't already, make sure to go ahead and input the promo code GAMELEAP to get your hands on 10 free experience brews, free energy refill, and 100,000 silver, gosh darn it. And you know what? If you already used that code, make sure to share it with your clanmates as well, man, and help your bros out in the current onslaught of events. Actually, the events are kind of never ending, so it's always useful to have promo codes in your back pocket, man. There you go. That is code GAMELEAP, boys. Okay, let's get on to good old Cornelia. Alright, man, so having just mentioned that most of your champs in this list, right, the block damage style champs are going to be running at a speed that is about like 5 to 10 slower than whatever Bommal stage it is that you're going up against, Cornelia actually bucks that trend right away. You're going to be running this gal at about 5 or 6 points of speed faster than whatever stage you are using her to clear Bommal on. Here's why, man. Here's the kit. First of all, the A2, chance of placing sleep debuff on all enemies for 1 turn, blah, 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 blah. You won't be disabling this against Bommal, of course. The A3 is really what it is all about. This is bookable down to a 2-turn cooldown. Now, dude, place a sleep debuff on an ally for 1 turn. That ally will be yourself, right? Cornelia will be sleeping herself. And then we're only interested in the second part of the tooltip here. Heal that ally by 100% and completely fill their turn meter if the sleep debuff is lost due to taking damage from an enemy, which you best believe it will be against Bommal. And because this is a 2-turn cooldown, you use the skill and then your turn meter gets completely filled as soon as the sleep is broken. It's basically a 1-turn cooldown, right? You wake up from the sleep, you auto-attack in, and then you're sleeping yourself again and healing to full again on the very next attack. And because of how this ability functions, yeah, you need to be that tiny smidgen faster than the Bommal that you are running against. 5 or 6 speed is ideal. Now, I have seen some folks talk about running Cornelia in a toxic set, and maybe you can get away with that in the smaller stages of Bommal, right? The easier stages of Bommal. I'm pretty sure that regeneration and immortal become necessary as you push the more and more difficult stages. Not going to be a fast run, but it will be quite reliable. Alright, man. Next we've got Crimson Helm. And you know how we covered Templar and how annoying and unreliable he can be, but he is an option if you just want to kind of grit your teeth and get your way through Bommal stages that you were otherwise stuck on. Well, Crimson Helm is like a direct upgrade to Templar, because in the A1, she has decreased attack instead of decreased speed, so you're not going to get those annoying, unreliable runs every now and again. Now, she does have that same she has that same multi-hitter on the A2 and the same block damage buff on this champion for 1 turn as Templar, so she's just like a copy, just like a slightly more reliable version of Templar himself. And on the A3, she has a revive on death buff and a strong increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns, which does have some utility as well. So Crimson Helm into stage 90 hard Bommal. She's going to want to land on that final speed counter of 239 to 249. Again, that is going to be the Goldilocks zone for all of these block damage style champs. So honestly, I'm going to stop mentioning it. That's 239 to 249 speed is what you want to land on if it's a block damage skill that you are relying on to survive the bomb hits. However, to build Crimson Helm, dude, she's lacking health, man. She's quite low health for an epic defense champ. And so to stop her from being so squishy and to tank her up, you actually want to build her with about 180 speed. And then the rest of her speed you want to gain from her masteries, right? The Whirlwind of Death and the Spirit Haste masteries, plus a speed aura lead on your team. Ideally, a 24% speed aura lead on your team will get her the rest of the way up to the speed totals that she needs. And this is going to allow you to build her with that kind of minimum of like 3k to 3.5k defense stats, and ideally as much health as you could possibly get your hands on. Besides that, like all of the block damage champs on this list, again, I'm going to not mention this anymore. The block damage buffs are going to be used to survive the hits from the bombs, and you can also kind of throw in the revive on death in there as well if you are looking to survive the Bommal hits and you're struggling a little bit. And yeah, that is good old Crimson Helm. Next up, we've got a super unique epic that tanks Bommal and solos Bommal in a kind of unique way, relying on stacking a crap load of resistance. On good old Vegas, you're going to be stacking at least 350 resistance flat. That is before things like your Great Hall resistance buffs and things like resistance aura leads on your team. You're going to want to be pushing at least 450 total resistance on Vegas after all is said and done. Right, so why do you need so much resistance? Well, it's because Vegas relies on a lot of buffs, and you don't want Bommal to be stripping those buffs and replacing them with bombs. That's just not going to be good, right? So on the A1 even has a reflect damage buff, which you can get some utility out of, again, if you build them with enough resistance. On the A2, he's got a continuous heal and his speed buff, plus another reflect damage buff, which is actually grand. And on the passive, places a shield on himself for 10% of his max HP whenever he is hit for 10% or more of his max HP. And on the active effect, which again, this is bookable down to a 1-turn cooldown, anytime he drops below half HP, he places that strong continuous heal buff on himself as well. So that's a lot of buffs, it's a lot of survivability. You're still going to need him in an immortal and a regeneration set. But yeah, you're going to need that resistance on top of that as well to ensure that these buffs are not being stolen and you're actually getting use out of them. To that end, you're going to want to build your Vegas with about 200 speed and then fill up the rest of the speed requirements with the Whirlwind and Spirit Haste masteries. And yeah, that is good old Vegas. Man, we're blasting through these now. We're going to blast through this next one even quicker because it's kind of an obvious one that's being covered to death here on YouTube. And that is going to be Lady Annabelle, who on her A1, she actually heals herself because it's a double hitter. She heals herself for 6% of her max HP every time she attacks in with the A1, which is great, but it's really all about her passive, right? The A1 just kind of helps out a little bit. Lady Annabelle healed this champion by 50% of her max HP whenever an ally or an enemy dies, including the bombs that Bommal spawns. And because, of course, the bombs explode and deal 40% of a champion's health as damage, she will always out-heal the bombs with the passive, kind of no matter what. So as long as she's got plenty of HP and a lot of speed, again, like north of 200 speed, Immortal set, Regeneration set is going to tick enough to keep her alive in between procs of the Red Lady passive. And yeah, it's not going to be a quick clear, but Lady Annabelle will get it done. Now, a champ that's kind of a carbon copy in the same way that we're also just going to blast through is going to be Burangiri, who, would you know it, has basically exactly the same passive. Heal this champion by 50% of the max HP whenever one of the bombs explodes. And so Burangiri does the same job. He does not have a heal on his A1, and so if you're really, really young in your account and you pull a Burangiri and a Lady Annabelle, it's going to be easier to progress with the Lady Annabelle, right? She's just going to have a little bit less gear-intensive requirements, I suppose. But they're really kind of similar in how far they can push against Bommal as a solo. A quick additional note about Burangiri. Yeah, just make sure you disable his A3 going into the Bommal fight. You don't want to place all these buffs on yourself. They're just going to get stripped by Bommal. He's going to turn them into bombs, and you're going to be very, very sad indeed. Now, to kick off our legendaries, we have good old Helikath. Man, this is another block damage style champ. He's got it on his A3. This is bookable down to a 4-turn cooldown, which I believe is necessary in order to make this work out. Place a block damage buff on all allies for 2 turns. Whenever a block damage buff placed on an ally by this champion is removed, stolen, or blah blah blah, place increased defense on that ally for a couple of turns. Grand block damage, it's all good. And because he has a double hitter on his A1 and his passive allows him to counterattack whenever he's under a block damage buff, like the clear speed is just a hop and a skip better than the epic counterparts. That said, Helikath, you're going to want to build him with about 222 speed and then make up the rest of the speed to get him in that 239, 249 Goldilocks zone by getting him the Whirlwind Mastery. Whirlwind of Death, that is. And the reason you want to pick up some speed in the masteries is because honestly, you're going to want to build this guy with a crap ton of HP. Most guides I've seen on YouTube, people who've been trying this strat out and whatever, building Helikath with a minimum of 100,000 HP, right? When you're deciding where your stats go on your gear, being able to shave a little bit off the speed and put that into HP instead might just be crucial, so do bear that in mind. You might want to pick up some speed from the masteries. And of course, you also want to make sure to disable his A2 because that shield buff is not going to be worth a goddamn. It's going to get stripped and replaced by a bomb. That is the Helikath solo. Next up, we have Samar Gemcursed, and this is another champ that kind of bucks the trend and doesn't need to land in that speed Goldilocks zone. Oh no, he needs a lot more speed than that. Okay, so his A1, you're going to be spamming the hell out of this throughout the fight. It's an attack one enemy, heal by 15% of the damage inflicted if you are less than half HP. Fill this champion's 10 meter by 15% if he has more than 50% HP, both of which are honestly pretty grand. On his passive, and this is where it's at, you can't reduce the cooldown of this passive using skill bucks, and so it is locked at 4 turns, which is why as much speed as possible on Samar is going to be very, very important. Here it is. So, place a block damage buff on this champ for 1 turn at the start of each round. So that doesn't really count for a whole lot. You know, you kill the last wave, you enter the Bommal fight, you get a block damage buff. It's kind of like whatever. It's just a passive effect. It wears off. It's gone after 1 turn out of the 300 or 500 or whatever that is going to take you to kill Bommal. The active effect, however, blocks incoming damage and places a block damage buff on this champion for 1 turn when they receive a hit that would drop their HP below 30%. Dude, you're going to need a crazy amount of speed. You need to outpace the boss, okay, in order to ensure that this thing comes back off of cooldown as quickly as possible, because this is how you're going to be surviving against the bombs. As for stats, about 85,000 health. You're talking about 3,500 defense. And then, dude, try and build him out to have like 230, 240 speed on just his gear alone, and then you're going to bolster that even further with the Spirit Haste and the Whirlwind of Death masteries, and Christ even put his speed lead aura as well as the leader of the team to boost the speed even higher. You're going to be talking like 270 plus speed on Samar to get this guy working. It's quite stat intensive. but hey, it will work. Next up, we might have what might be the queen of soloing Bommal and one of the most gear-intensive builds as well, but it's just hilarious, man. And as a beginner player, I can't even imagine building a champ out to have this many stats, but I want to cover it anyway. It is good old Kyoku, man. So, the A1 has a chance to place Weaken, which is actually, I mean, fine. You are going to have to build Kyoku with some accuracy as well, just so that you are landing not just this debuff, but of course the debuff on the A2, which is where this champ really excels beyond the rest, because this clear speed is great, right? It's an attack all enemies with a fully bugged 100% chance of placing decreased attack debuff for a couple of turns. Obviously not that useful into Bommal, but after attacking, also has a 100% chance of placing an HP burn debuff for 2 turns that this skill did not place the decreased attack buff on. So you cannot place the HP burn on Bommal, but you can place it on the bombs. And when it ticks on the bombs, it will damage Bommal for a whole swollen load of damage. Beyond that, Kyoku is another one of these block damage style champs, bookable down to a 4-turn cooldown, which is great. It's perfect, right? Yeah, she also gets an extra turn after placing the block damage buff too. Now, I'm sure that this build is actually just more frivolous than anything, and it's doable at lower speed tunings, and the fight might just take a little bit longer and blah, 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 blah. But the guide I saw on this, which is linked down below in the description, by the way, has Kyoku at 294 speed from her gear alone. That is before the Whirlwind of Death and Spirit haste masteries, and even before the 24% speed aura party lead. Okay, so she's pushing just stupid amounts of speed, and I guess you can get away with that because the block damage is going to last a couple of turns after she's got that extra turn as well. With Kyoku, you're going to want to be opening with an auto attack. That's the mobile player in me. You're going to want to open with an A1 as the priority skill. Then you want to switch priority to the A2. So you're spamming that as much as humanly possible. Then second after that, of course, you want to set the second priority to the A3. And this will clear Bommal hard 90 at just a stupid speed. Next up on the legendary list, we've got good old Raf Matab, who is honestly just another standard good old block damage style guy. And so you're going to want to build him with that 239, 249 kind of speed range going into Bommal 90. And similar to Helikath, he's another champ that you're going to want to build with north of 100,000 total HP. And so because, just like Helikath, because you're putting so many stats into HP, it's kind of advised that you build Raf Matab with something like 210 to 215 speed and then make up the rest using masteries or a speed or a lead for the rest of your team, and he can get the job done. And finally, we've got Alsgore Crimson Horn, who on his A1 does have a little bit of healing, attacks one enemy, heals champion by 20% of the damage dealt. I believe against Bommal, you want to be disabling the A2, just because it's going to be placing a continuous heal, and honestly that thing against Bommal, of course, being a buff and you're not building this guy with resistance, it's just going to do more harm than good, so you just want to completely scrap that and get rid of it. And on the A3, he has full heals a target ally, also places block damage buff on all allies for 2 turns. It is on a 6-turn cooldown, so you are going to have to buck him down, but yeah, this is going to be your block damage skill, and so of course going to want to build this guy with about 240 total speed. So hey, regeneration set, immortal set. Actually, the guide that I checked out that I linked down below has him in 6 total immortal pieces, and just went like full immortal to really max him out on health, and that's because his recommended health total is north of 90,000. And so similar to other champs on this list, because you wanted to push the health so high, you can build him with like 220, 222 speed, and then make up the rest of his speed via auras, masteries, particularly Whirlwind, and that should work out just grand. Now, something that you do want to be aware of and be very afraid of with Alsgore is his passive. So when attacked, he has a 50% chance of placing a strong decreased speed debuff on the attacker for 2 turns. This can totally screw up your run. You want to be very careful of this. Again, you want to build this guy with very little, or just as little possible accuracy as you can possibly get away with. Otherwise, his decreased speed debuff can totally screw up the run, and so you just want to minimize the chance that this is actually going to land against the harder stages of Bommal. Now, if the debuff does land, you can get away with it. It might mean that you have to just be watching out for it, right, as it's kind of auto playing out, and if the speed debuff does land, go into manual mode, right, stop the auto, and just delay using the A3 by 1 round. You're going to have to keep your eyes peeled to that, and then once you've done that 1 time, it should be able to kind of sync up again once the speed debuff is gone, but you might have to switch over to manual just to kind of course correct a little bit. I'm not sure if all runs are savable. Maybe it just depends how you have them geared and how often the decreased speed debuff lands. to be honest, like accidentally. Maybe it lands like 2 or 3 times through a fight. You might fall so far out of sync that it's not savable and not salvageable. I'm not sure about that. But so long as that disaster does not occur, then Asgore is another one of these cheat champions for Bommal. And alright, that's about gonna do it, guys. So if I did miss any of the crazy solo carry cheat code champions for taking on the harder stages of Bommal in particular, make sure you drop them down below in the comments, man. I'm sure that I probably missed a good handful, to be fair. But hey, for now, thanks for watching. Hope you all did enjoy. Make sure, if you haven't already, use the promo code GameLoop to get your hands on all of those freebies. And you know what? If you're looking to start off a new Raid Shadow Legends account, the best way to do so is by clicking on the promo link down below at the top of the video description. Doing so will actually kickstart your new account with a free epic champion in the form of Juliana, as well as getting you a whole slew of starting free rewards as well. It also helps to support the channel too, so I'd really, really appreciate if any of y'all did do that. Thanks for watching, guys. Enjoy the rest of your night. I'm going to catch all of y'all just a tad bit later, man.